Hi, I'm Veronica and welcome to my channel. Today I would like to show you another of basic somatic yoga movements, which is really good for releasing tension from all along the spine. And it also teaches you how you can create a whole body movement where you can really feel that the movement can travel all the way from the feet to the neck, and it does wonders to the way you feel. You feel much more loose. You let go of tension that is all along your torso and spine, and maybe you're holding it in the hips or neck. So after doing it just for a very short time, you can really feel the difference. You won't need anything for that, and it's done lying down. Let's begin by making our way down to the ground, to lying on your back. So you can roll yourself down and then really take your time to move around first, to allow your body to settle, to find a position where you feel fully supported through the entire back body. So it's always a good idea to make some bigger or micro movements before you land in any given pose. So take a moment to make this little or slightly bigger movements first, and then once you're ready, set yourself in the constructive rest pose. So settle in constructive rest. That is the place where you have your knees bent and feet on the mat. And you can really play with where exactly you want to play your feet, whether you want to move them farther away, and that probably is not going to make it very stable and would require for more kind of supportive tension from the body. But also, if you're going to have it too close, it's going to feel quite constricted. So search for something in between where you feel that the structure of your bones is really enough to keep you there, and you don't need to tense up the muscles in your legs, in your groins, in your belly, or in your lower back. And once you found that, you can then maybe stay here for a moment, move the arms slightly further away from the body, find the place where your head wants to land. Maybe take a deeper breath in. And on the exhalation, allow your body to sink just a little bit more to the ground. And you can start already at this point paying attention to all the meeting points between the body and the floor. And that means the soles of your feet, the back of your pelvis, and the sacrum. And the ribs at the back of your rib cage, your shoulder blades, your arms, and the skull. Okay. So we're going to begin with a very subtle movement that is rolling towards the right side of the pelvis and towards the left side of the pelvis. So a little bit more weight towards the right side of the pelvis, a little bit more weight towards the left side of the pelvis. And as the pelvis rolls, you will see that the legs are also part of this movement. So you are not isolating the movement, you're allowing the movement to travel. So if your pelvis moves, the legs are attached to the pelvis, so they will move as well. And you're going for a very kind of soothing, rhythmical, pleasant sway from side to side, which already might feel like a lovely massage for the back of your pelvis. And eventually this movement will become bigger, and maybe to make it a little bit more stable for yourself, you might move your arms more out to the sides. So the arms are out and the legs start moving a little bit more. So you're not really going for reaching as far as you can, as soon as possible. You're going for allowing the body to unravel and to get used to this movement so that over time it can get bigger and more comfortable. Bigger and more comfortable with every time you let your knees drop towards one side and towards the other. So eventually, it will require a tiny bit of an effort from your core to return to the center. And make sure that when you make this movement, you go slowly. So maybe way slower than what you would normally go for. If you are used to this practice, if you've done the windshield wipers before. And also if you can stop holding your head still. So if you were not purposefully, even though sometimes subconsciously, holding it in place, immobilizing it, how your head would respond to this movement of the legs. And just to give you a little hint, if the communication between all the body parts travels freely, if there is no tension along the way that would impede this communication, there will be always a response from your neck and from your head to the movement that happens in your pelvis. They are linked and there is a natural response. So I would repeat it again. I'm not telling you to move your head at all. I'm telling you to invite it to do whatever it wants to do, to roll without your effort, without engaging any muscles in the neck, rolling in a way that it wants to roll. And you might notice that it wants to roll in the same direction as your knees or in the opposite direction as your knees. And either one is fine. Let it roll wherever it wants to roll for now. The main point here is to let go of that controlling and allowing the body to do whatever it feels like doing. And this movement is so great because it gives you the opportunity to really feel how initiating the movement from different parts is going to influence the way you feel it from inside out. Even though it might still look exactly the same for you as you watch it, it's going to feel differently. So again, you might want to slow down and now land all your attention in your feet. And notice that when you do this movement of dropping the knees from side to side, you're actually rolling to outer edge of one foot and the inner edge of the other foot. And if you want to return to the center, there has to be almost like this suction movement of the soles of the feet returning to the surface of the mat. So how would this movement look like if you initiated it from the feet? So think letting your feet roll to the outer edge of one foot, the inner edge of the other, and then as that happens, your lower legs follow, the upper legs follow, your pelvis will change the shape, that movement will travel up your torso and all the way towards the shoulders, the head, neck. And then if you return, it's bringing, it's like sucking those soles of the feet as if there was some suction power, sucking them back to the earth. And then the legs follow, the pelvis follows, the torso follows, everything centers again. So then you do it on the other side. You roll to one edge of one foot, the inner edge of the other foot, and it travels. So you could do it much slower if it's difficult for you to really connect to your feet, which might be the case if your feet are not very well mapped on your brain. And that's just a matter of practice. Or you could go in a more flowing way, so long as you still feel that this is the sequencing, that it starts from the feet and travels up the legs, through the pelvis, through the torso, to the neck, all the way to the head. And then go for something more familiar. So probably most of the people, when they start this movement, they think of dropping your knee, the knees from side to side. You might come back to that for a moment, how it is to drop the knees from side to side. So to initiate it from kind of middle of your legs. And is it any different from what you've just done? And then we're going to move to the awareness of the pelvis. And you might notice that what really happens when you go from side to side is that one side of the pelvis lifts and goes across on the midline on the diagonal, and then it returns so that both sides of the pelvis are even, and then exactly the same happens on the other side. Your pelvis tilts over, which means one hip bone is higher than the other, and the hip bone of the leg that is on top goes up and on the diagonal. And you really don't need to think about it. It's the felt sense that interests you here. So that's a movement of the pelvis, that constant rolling of the pelvis from side to side, which you actually began with, so you know that it's a movement of the pelvis. You already felt it. But now, as it's bigger, it really influences where your legs go, that dropping of the legs from side to side. It influences the movement of your entire torso, that also kind of rolls from side to side. And as the pelvis is via sacrum and very closely linked to the spine, that movement travels up the spine all the way to the neck. So how is it to initiate this movement from your pelvis? Okay. And then you still keep going because this movement is actually so soothing. You could keep going on for 1 hour easily. And there are many things you can play with. The other one would be really focusing on your breathing and on making this movement very, very even and synchronizing it with the breath. So now, when you think of the moment that everything comes back to the midline, and then everything moves away from the midline. So there is a moment when your head rolls and your legs roll, the legs drop away from the midline, and then there's a moment when everything comes back to the center. So give it a rhythm. Use the exhalation to drop, inhalation to come back to the center. And check how you feel about that. But don't think that this is the one and only correct way, because you might want to try out how it would be to inhale to reach away from the midline and exhale to return. And maybe one of these is going to make more sense. It's going to feel more natural, more easy for you. So you go for that one. There is no right or wrong here. You go for what feels more easy and flows easier for you, but you still stick to the rule that there is the same time, it takes the same time for the legs and for the head to roll, and they all meet in the center exactly at the same moment. And this is very synchronized with your inhalation and exhalation. So for a while, you can work on this. And let it be really in the rhythm of your breathing, rather your breathing trying to adjust to the rhythm of your movement. And maybe suddenly that rhythm changes completely for you. Maybe it's not so rushed anymore. Now there is a way to engage the upper body in that a little bit more, your arms, your limbs. So when your knees drop to the left, you might create even longer line of lengthening, which would be maybe somewhere from the top knee all along the outer leg, outer hip, the lower back, the upper back, the shoulder, through the arm, all the way to the fingertips. So that's one long line that is being created when you add to that kind of upward movement of the opposite arm. And then everything returns to the center, and you can do the same on the other side. So as the knees drop, the opposite arm reaches on the diagonal, and then you're gonna really feel that movement traveling all the way to your fingertips. So the arms become part of it as well. And you can keep going like that. Try not to lift the arm, but just slide it on the floor so that it's relaxed. Everything is really kind of floppy and relaxed, if I haven't said that yet. It's an important part of it that your head is rolling heavy, your legs are dropping heavy, your arms are sliding, and there is a minimum effort with that. So there is a movement that requires just the minimum effort from you. Of course, if it confuses you, the movement of the arms, this is just one of the options. You don't really need to do it. And then eventually, everything returns to the center, and you can settle into constructive rest one more time. And you might be quite surprised to notice that the meeting points between the body and the floor have changed. You might notice that there is less of a gap between the lower back and the floor, or between the neck and the floor. And in general, the pelvis and the feet and even the back of the rib cage might feel like it's potentially a little bit more sunk a little bit deeper into the mat, and it's more spread out. It might be that none of this happened to you, and it really doesn't matter. But what matters here is that you're giving yourself time to pause, your brain to process everything that happened, and for you to really feel the difference, the before and after. It's very important so that you really know why you're doing it. What does it give to you? I hope you enjoyed this short practice, and you can treat this one along with the other ones that I presented in this series as a kind of preventative practices. So if you keep coming back to those really simple movements often, ideally every day, you make your fascia slide and glide freely, and that prevents you from creating the adhesions in the fascia, which are responsible for that feeling of stiffness and tension. So it's really useful to do this practice as a prevention, as a way of keeping your body really mobile and loose and move with ease. But if you do happen to suffer from the pain right now, make sure that you download my audio, 7 minute long, from my website over here. It's a first aid for pain, and it really helps you to deal with this difficult sensation. So I'm looking forward to see you next time.